There will be a presentation of the team MASSter with the title, The Proposal for Direction of Solution to SOLAS Regulation that Preclude the Introduction of MASS. Please give them a round of applause.
Good morning, distinguished delegates. We are Team MASSter. We made this name for hoping to be a master of our topic. We will start our presentation right now.
Good morning to distinguished delegates. I'm the first speaker. It is a great honor to have a chance of a presentation. As we are all aware, we are already approaching to fourth industrial revolution. We believe that the life at sea will be changed dramatically. In this context, we would like to talk about the proposals for solutions to SOLAS regulations that preclude the introduction of MASS. As you can see, this presentation will proceed in the following order. First of all, we have identified some regulations of SOLAS Chapter 5 that may preclude the introduction of a MASS in terms of a human factor. Later, we propose how the existing international conventions could be modified in accordance with the levels of autonomy. This is the graph which shows the revenue and growth of the autonomous ship market. As you know, MASS has been developed to a considerable level. Despite the fact that there's a large demand for MASS, but we could encounter some problems which may conflict with introducing MASS. This slide shows the problems we may encounter. Among them, we will discuss the legal issues. When it comes to legal problems, it is content that the crew boarding is a prerequisite for most of the international conventions. So, existing legal system is not compatible with MASS. Actually, it is too extensive to deal with the whole international convention. So, we limited the scope to SOLAS Chapter 5. This is the picture which represents that the current SOLAS regulation is blocking the introduction of a MASS. At this point, you may have a question like, so what exactly MASS is? This is the definition of maritime autonomous surface ship from general terms of MASSC in IMO. MASS is divided into 4 stages of autonomy. To be specific, at the very first level, crew members are expected to be inevitably reduced because of partially automated processes and decision support. Next, at the second stage, ships are remotely controlled by shore operator, although seafarer is still on board. In case of remote control problems, seafarer will immediately coping with the errors. Next, at the third level, ships are fully and entirely controlled by remote control center. And also, seafarer is no longer on board. But unlike second stage, the redundant system does respond to dangerous situations. Finally, at a fully autonomous pace, ships should be able to make decisions and determine actions by itself. But it is too far distant future actually, so it will be practical to explain within the third pace. And I would like to invite the next speaker who will explain this topic in more detail.
thank you for the introduction. We'll introduce the regulations this team identified in SOLAS Chapter 5, Safety of Navigation. We scoped 3 regulations, Regulation 14, 24, 31. The background of scoping these regulations is about existence of seafarers. As you see, when MASS is introduced, the situation of the partial reduction of crew, and furthermore, no seafarers on board is scheduled. The reason we decided this background for criteria of scoping is human presence on board is chosen for one of the key considerations of ongoing RSE work in IMO, as shown in the following documents. And then, regulations to be reviewed. It's Regulation 14. Its title is Ship's Manning. It contains the requirements of arrangement of seafarers by expression like this. But in MASS, seafarers' mission will be changed, so this regulation is required to be amended. Second, it's Regulation 24. Its title is Use of Heading and Track Control Systems. It uses expression like this. This means that manual control of steering is necessary in high traffic density or hazardous areas, as continuous and immediate steering is necessary such a circumstance. But this regulation is also premised on seafarers on board, so this may conflict with MASS. Next, Regulation 31. Its title is Danger Messages. This regulation is written, is bound to communicate the information. But there is a question whether we can use the definition of MASSter as it is, since seafarer system will be changed. And this action is also conducted by seafarers on board. This has room to conflict with MASS. Before we make a suggestion of solution, based on this statement of document in IMO, our team premised this. At first, we believe that the people in remote control room who are qualified to navigation and engineering tasks have to be considered in SOLAS, although not completely the same as before. And based on this statement, we assume that the top operator in remote control room is same as MASSter. We would like to express our policy direction in order to solve the regulations we just showed. It's Regulation 14 related to manning. Number 1 of autonomy, slight reduction in seafarers has to be considered in this regulation in way of excluding seafarers whose role is replaced by technology. And number 2, seafarers on board don't control vessel. Therefore, personal placement for working aside from controlling operation in vessel is necessary. In addition, it is necessary to define the placement of staff for working in the remote control room. And number 3, only personal placement for working in the remote control room is necessary. Next, Regulation 24 about manual steering. Number 1, no problem as seafarers are on board. And number 2, as remote control room is expected to cover the steering generally, it may be possible to authorize the right of steering control to the vessel to manually steer. Number 3, manual control of steering is not possible as seafarers are not on board. So the regulation that addresses the response of steering in remote control room is needed. Last, Regulation 31 which describes danger messages. Number 1, no problem as seafarers are on board. Number 2, as danger information is perceived in remote control room, that place has to be in charge of notifying danger messages. However, when there is a problem in remote system, it shall be set in such a way the seafarers on board can directly detect and notify messages. In number 3, this level is same as level 2. However, in the event of the remote system's failure, this regulation has to be defined to enable the redundant system to detect and notify danger messages. Now, I would like to invite next speaker who will present summary and conclusion.
Thank you for your introduction. I'm going to talk about the summary and the conclusion. This table is summary of our proposal, and this table is quoted from a template found in document of IMO. We modified that template to see and understand more easily. This would be a framework to be used as a guideline to enable not only regulations proposed by us, but also other international conventions to be modified. Now, finally, we would like to suggest an amendment that contains solutions we have presented. At first, at the Regulation 14, we have to make sure that there are remote control rooms as well as all ships where personnel are placed. And we need to add the content related to the levels of autonomy due to the big difference in manning regulation according to the levels of autonomy. And at the Regulation 24, we have to state that steering is also conducted by remote control. Next, at the Regulation 31, we first, instead of using the term MASSter, chief remote controller is more appropriate. And the content is necessary that remote control center is responsible for notifying the danger messages through all means. Also, we need to add a statement about counteraction in case of remote systems failure. From now on, everything we wanted to propose is presented. But we would like to leave a few issues to be discussed. These issues should be clarified first to make helpful to modifying the regulations. To explain several issues among them. At first, the third issue about the MASSter. As you can see in this document, the yellow underline is opinion that disagree with considering as a MASSter, and the blue one is opinion that agrees. And another issue, whether personnel in remote center can be seafarer. Yellow means it's hard to consider. On the other hand, the blue one is optimistic to consider. As each of you knows, different nation has different opinion in regard to same problem. Thus, we need to come up with unified answer to propose a proper amendment. As we know, the fourth industrial revolution is just around the corner. We are obliged to prepare ourselves to face a new era. First of all, we are of the view that rules and regulations
on the autonomous vessel should be scrutinized. We believe that our approach to this subject are also a kind of preparation for the future. Last but not least, this team MASSter would like to express our sincere thanks to the organization for giving us this valuable chance of presentation. We hope that the sea becomes safer, cleaner in the future. Thank you for your attention to our presentation.
Okay, thank you again for your good presentation. Okay, head of judge panel, Mr. Park will preside over the Q&A session, please.
Thank you, MASSter. Have any questions to floor? Okay, CB1 first and second Avengers.
Well, first of all, thank you for your well-constructed presentation. In your presentation, you said that the operator should be considered equal to the master, but I believe that the master of the crew is capable of making on-the-spot decisions based on sometimes only their senses and limited information. So I am not sure if the remote operators should and if they are worthy of receiving the same status as the human crew.
Thank you for your question. The task of MASSter, my apology. The task of top operator in remote control room coincide with many aspects of the MASSter's role in current vessel. So we can consider them as similar to MASSter, but it's not exactly the same. So we use the chip remote controller that distinguished from MASSter.
Well, thank you for your answer, but one question remains that I believe that currently remote operators are not subject to the same degree of education or beforehand training as the human crews. So I understand your answer, but I believe that issue has to be solved in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next question or Avengers?
Thank you, Chair. We are Team Avengers, and thank you for your presentation. According to our investigation, people on board the Level 2 as not same as original seafarers who are qualified to navigation and engineering tasks. Then, we wonder that what specific criteria do you think of should be established in order to ensure that manual steering and danger messages as suggested are performed by those people, and why?
First of all, we appreciate your question. Of course, we are in line with your review about the personnel on board in level 2 of autonomy. But, however, if what we know is right, our delegation thinks we're talking about the statement of document in 98 MSC. Based on that document, we understand the document state there are some people on board who are not qualified to navigation and engineering tasks and do not work on decision making and control. But according to the result of 1990th MSC, which redefined what was not clear in 98th MSC, in the level 2 of autonomy is defined. The people on board are seafarer who have qualification and duty of original crew. Therefore, as personnel on board can be considered the people who can take the work on manual steering and danger messages. This delegation are of the view that new criteria is not necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for answering.
Okay, any questions? Oh, Utopia?
Thank you, Chair. This is Team Utopia. On the page 16, it is stated that the remote operator should be considered equal to the master. In the second level of anatomy, seafarers are on board. What if the opinion of seafarer and remote operator clash? What is the decision making the process?
I apologize. Can you paraphrase it for me, please?
So according to your page on 16, it is stated that the remote operator should be considered equal to the master, the second one. In the second level of anatomy, the seafarers are not on board. What if the opinion of seafarer and remote operator clash? So I mean that if the seafarer and remote operator have different opinion, which one should be more forcible to make a decision?
I want to express the sincere thanks for your question. Our delegation wants to propose that the seafarer on the board in the second level is the person for the monitoring. It is not fully qualified person for the navigation. So we want to suggest that if the seafarer encounters some problems, he or she may follow the command of the remote controller first.
Okay, any questions?
Team MASSter, thank you for your presentation. I have a question on your conclusion in page 24. If you apply this proposal, such as the new term of MASSter, Chief Remote Controller in page 24, will it affect? It will affect the usual regulations about manned ships. How are you going to apply this new proposal on SOLAS, which does not collide with original ones?
I apologize here. Can you paraphrase for me?
The terms such as Chief Remote Controller, which you have mentioned, can be collided with the original term of MASSter in the manned ships. How are you going to apply this new term to the original SOLAS to not collide with the original ships?
As you mentioned into Sea Beyond, the ship remote controller in remote center is not exactly the same as MASSter in current vessel, but it has many aspects, something similar to the role. So, although it is not exactly the same, we use this term that distinguishes it from MASSter.
Thank you for your answer, but I still think that this term will collide to the original regulation and needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Okay, last one, Beyond question.
And thank you for your presentation, and I fully agree on your perspective that due to the introduction of mass, the role has to be changed because the original role has presumed the presence of the humans. So that's why you suggested to adopt the remote operator other than the traditional seafarers. So have you think of which role should each should divide it, and who should take charge? Who should mainly take charge of the ship in case of collisions or accidents happened?
On the ship or on remote control center?
Yeah, who should mainly act in behalf of the ship between seafarers or remote operators that you suggested to adopt?
Thank you for your question. Almost every work, for example, decision making and control is controlled on remote control center, and the people in remote control center is maybe the people who are originally work in vessel in current situation. So the most of the task is performed on the people in remote control center. Thank you.
Okay, now we are closing the question and answer time. Thank you for the MASSter.
Okay, thank you again. Okay, return to your seat. Thank you.